Cricket Life Stories with me, Neel Khagram. Today we're joined by Paul Harris. How you doing down in South Africa?
Yeah, not too bad. It's a bit chilly, yeah. So I've found myself a nice posy in the balcony in the sun, and soaking up a few rays. We're cracking about 15 degrees now, so hopefully it'll warm up a bit.
Yeah, no, it doesn't look too bad over there. So let's start where it all began with yourself. You were born in Salisbury, Zimbabwe, before making the move over to South Africa, Cape Town, as a kid. Can you talk through your earliest memories of the sport and how you got into it?
Sure. Yeah, no, look, obviously, as you said, born in Zim, but I was very young when we left. My father fought in the war, and we actually left for the US for a while. My parents finished their studies there, and then we moved to Cape Town. And sort of my first memories of cricket would probably be mini cricket. There was a thing here in South Africa called Baker's Mini Cricket. It is the best sort of junior cricket sort of setup that I've ever seen. I think every single South African cricketer that you speak to would have come through that sort of system. It's where everyone got sort of one over. You play with a Slazenger ball. I'm not sure if you guys know what those are there. It's like a harder version of a tennis ball. And everyone sort of gets a turn, and everyone played that, and I sort of really enjoyed it. And you'd get Baker's they made biscuits and cakes here in South Africa, and they still do. And everyone would get a biscuit and a Coke, and you'd go off to your sort of local park, and you'd play. They'd have these things where you go play Baker's Mini Cricket. So for us, that was a sort of stepping stone for most cricketers in South Africa to get involved in the sport. And I suppose, I fell in love with it when I was very young.
And then you also whilst you're playing at high school, you were spotted by Duncan Fletcher to come into the Western Province's youth setup. How did that all come about? And a word on Duncan Fletcher. Obviously, in the UK, we know a lot about him with his success in the England side. A word on that period?
Yeah, it was a bit of a sort of longer haul than that. I didn't play any provincial cricket at school whatsoever. I sort of I grew up in a place called Kommetjie, and I had long sort of dreadlocks, and we enjoyed surfing, and we were quite laid back, and I kind of wanted to surf rather than I wanted to play all sports, but I really enjoyed surfing, and cricket was kind of I played at school for the first team, but I didn't go to one of the more traditional schools here in Cape Town. I went to one of the sort of smaller schools out in the sticks, so I didn't really get much sort of recognition. And I'd say it was a combination of Duncan Fletcher and Vincent Barnes. Vincent Barnes was the bowling coach of people know him as the bowling coach for South Africa for quite a long period of time, who had spotted me at one of the sort of outlying nets and sort of brought me into the Western Province system, and brought me into this sort of, I started bowling at nets to the main Western Province side as a net bowler, and that's when sort of Duncan sort of spotted me, and I think a good word from Vincent saying, look, this is not the worst I've seen, and just got sort of nurtured, and I like Duncan Fletcher. He calls a spade, and it's my kind of guy. He doesn't hold back. At the time, we had quite a few good spinners. Paul Adams and Claude Henderson were at Western Province. So I wasn't getting too much of a look in there, and just biding my time playing a lot of B-section cricket. And he's a great guy, old Duncan, and I like the way he speaks.
And you mentioned Paul Adams and Claude Henderson. You only played, I believe you made your debut in 1998, but only 2 further games in the next few years up until like 2001, 2002. Was that period just kind of learning your craft?
Sure, I think it was. I think in this day and age, guys sort of want that. We live in that sort of now culture where guys, want everything to happen as soon as they come out of school. You'll get your sort of geniuses that will happen to, like an Abby de Villiers. A guy like him will come out of school and sort of stop playing automatically. But I sort of had to bide my time. I played a lot of B-section cricket. We call it B-section cricket here, second team cricket in the UK for Western Province. We had a formidable B side. That won most trophies. We learned to win. We learned to play proper 3-day cricket at the time. We were led very well by a guy called Lloyd Ferreira, who was an amazing captain and a great guy. And we just learned our trade and learned our craft, and learned how to have fun and enjoy the game. But as you said, didn't get much chance in the sort of first team. But I was young and learning how to do things, and then obviously made the move from Western Province. It was supposed to be a 2-year plan to move to Gauteng, but now I'm still here 20 odd years later. So my 2-year plan didn't work out too well.
Yeah, so
did though.
Yeah, so the move to Northerns, was it a playing decision just did you feel you would get more opportunity there?
So effectively, what happened was we played the B section final. It was called the Old Bowl section, which was the second team final against Northerns. And I think I got 7 in the first innings and 8 wickets in the second innings, and 15 in the game, or something like that. And Dave Nosworthy, who was the coach of Northerns at the time, then came to me and said, "Do I want to move to Pretoria?" And I'm not sure if any of the listeners will know the difference in culture between, being a surfer from Cape Town and then going up to a sort of very Afrikaans, very regimented Pretoria. It was a culture shock of epic proportions. My skateboard was taken away in the first week. I was skating in the car park at Supersport Park, and that was taken away because I wasn't allowed to skate in case I got injured. And it was more focused. I think for me it was great for me because there was not much else to do besides sort of focus on my game and sort of understand what I wanted to do with my career and how I wanted to sort of achieve a few things. And Dave Nosworthy was great for giving me that opportunity. And then sort of led into Richard Pybus coming in as the coach later on, and that particular Northerns and then changing to Titans team did exceptionally well.
Yeah, so you mentioned obviously under the new kind of structure that took place in South African cricket, the Super Sport League, I believe it was called, with the Titans. 2005, would you say your breakthrough season, 49 wickets, the most by any bowler? And a word on Richard Pybus, how much of an effect has he had on your career?
Sure. Look, I think when he arrived, I think it was the first time that someone kind of understood what I was sort of all about. And I suppose you, rightly or wrongly so, because of my sort of personality and quite laid back and very Cape Town at the time, I was sort of looked upon as someone going against the grain when I necessarily wasn't. I just had my own way of doing things. And Pybus came in, and he's quite a free spirit, and he kind of treats everyone differently. And for the first time, I think in my career, I felt like I was really backed, and really appreciated it. And they started to prepare wickets for us, myself and Neel here was there for a while as well, and we bowled well together. So it was, we created a sort of spin bowling culture within the side, and we had some bloody good cricketers. I mean, we had, there was the emergence of Dale Steyn. He also rocked up from Palabora, which is sort of north of Pretoria, with long blonde hair. We called him Sunshine when he arrived. And, bowling thunderbolts, he didn't have, his aim wasn't that good, but he was bowling quickly. He came into the setup with the guy likes of Faf du Plessis, Heine Kuhn, Etienne Belati, Alfonso Thomas, all these guys, led incredibly well by Martin van Jaarsveld and later on Pierre Joubert. And we just created a sort of culture of winning. And that came from Richard Pybus. And he instilled that in us. We were sort of the guys that Northerns were known as the guys that sort of, had all the talent but didn't win much. When Pybus came into the setup, we really got that belief where we believed we could win every trophy. And, we had a proper cricket side. We built up the guys over 4 or 5 years, a proper good system of maybe 3 teams, or sort of 3 to 18, that any of those guys could play at any time, which was great to be part of.
You talked about being backed. During that period, I talk about 2005, did you have any conversations at that time with the national side? I asked the question because obviously in 2006 you come over to the UK on a Colpack deal, play for Warwickshire. What did you have any conversation with the national sides about any?
No, there was nothing. That was one of the reasons why I did it. There was no sort of conversation at all. It was quite weird. I actually had to do well for Warwickshire before I got a phone call from any of the sort of national selectors. At the time they had Nick Boyer in the setup, and I mean, we didn't even know they were looking for anyone else. For me, it was weird how that whole Colpack thing came up. I mean, those days the rules were slightly different. Anyone could sort of take a Colpack contract, and I think maybe it was taken advantage of too much at some stage, and they strengthened those rules, and rightly so. But I mean, I was playing cricket who was I playing for again? I was playing, I think, for Fleetwood. I was playing cricket for Fleetwood, and obviously there was a strong South African connection at Warwickshire with Jonathan Trott, who I played quite a bit of sort of junior cricket with. And Dan Venturi hurt himself, and he hurt his back, unfortunately. And John said to them, well, look, said Mark Greatbatch, who was the coach at the time, said, look, there's this guy down the road who's not half bad. Maybe you should give him a crack. And that's how it sort of came up. And, I really enjoyed myself there, I suppose, as a South African guy, coming into any setup in the UK, that would be one you would choose, because we had a pretty strong, Southern African connection with East Street being our sort of captain. And, I had Tim Groenewald there. I had Tim Ambrose, although being an Aussie, we inducted him to the SAFA Hall of Fame. There was quite a few, South African guys there, and and a really good team, and just a fantastic place to play cricket. And I loved county cricket because you didn't have to train. So you were always playing. I like competing. Training for me was a bit of a mission, but competing I loved. So, I think I only had 3 nets the whole time I was at Warwickshire because you play every day. So for me, it was a fantastic experience, and it helped me understand how to bowl in different conditions. Unfortunately for the English, I think it's become a bit of a finishing school for a lot of cricketers, and it certainly was for me. And if I hadn't gone there, I'm not sure I would have been selected to play for South Africa.
Yeah, so 2006 Boxing Day Test match. Nicky Boyer has retired. You get your opportunity in the full Test side. When you eventually got the call, how did that make you feel? Proudest moment?
Yeah, it was. I was actually having a few drinks with Faf du Plessis, actually, funny enough. We were on holiday in Cape Town, and we were at a place called the Brass Bowl, one of my favourite pubs in the world. And I got the phone call from Haroon Norgard, who was the national convener of selectors, asking me if I wanted to play. And I was kind of a bit taken back. And after the phone call, I didn't even know if I was selected or not. I had to phone him back to find out if I actually was selected to play. It was a bit. Look, I felt a bit bad as well in a way. Obviously, I was elated, but I had kind of committed to Warwickshire, and then I had to obviously make the phone call through to Mark Greatbash to say, look, this is what the story, and he was great. Warwickshire were phenomenal. In saying, look, we're not going to stop you from sort of your dreams and what you wanted to achieve. And it had been a long road. 28, I think I played close to 80 first-class games by the time when I got my call up. And it had been a long haul. I mean, we'd worked hard to get there, and it was pretty cool. And also to play against India, to play against a couple of the sort of, I look down at that batting order even now, and I think cheapers, that was pretty cool to be able to bowl to those guys.
Yeah, so you got 4 for on debut, including the wicket of the great Sachin Tendulkar. Then you backed it up the following year away in Pakistan. I think you got your wickets at 20s. I was looking back at some stats, including a 5 in Karachi. Were you exuding confidence as a spinner at that stage?
I think that's been it was probably one of my skill sets. I think is first of all, I was very accurate. I obviously didn't spin the ball as much as others, but I was very accurate, and I didn't really care who I bowled to. I sort of if I was playing a sort of club game here in Pretoria for TUT, or if I was bowling to Sachin Tendulkar at Newlands, it didn't really bother me all that much. I was just stoked to be out there and competing. I've got quite an in-your-face, abrasive sort of character. It worked well for me. It's not how I am off the field, I can assure you. Much more relaxed, but it worked for me. It worked for me to get there. And I just feel as a spin bowler, you've got to be in the game. You've got to you don't have the ability to have instill any fear with bowling short, or being intimidating batsmen. So you kind of got to use your words at times. It worked for me certain times, and other times not so much. And I suppose at that stage I was pretty confident. It had started well for me in Test cricket. I absolutely loved touring. So for me, touring, I loved it. Going to a place I'd never been to, going to Pakistan as my first tour, rocking up in Karachi, it's pretty much as far away as you can get culturally from what I was brought up with, and, understanding a different culture, especially, it's quite strict and regimented in Karachi, and, understanding what those sort of people, how they live, what they go through. And then obviously the wicket there, they had old Canaria in their side, and I think they got it a little bit wrong, and they sort of created this wicket that spun from day one. And we were fortunate to have Jacques Kallis, who I think got 100 in both innings in that Test match. And I was lucky enough to get a few wickets as well.
And then 2008, you made your one-day international debut. You played 3 overall for South Africa, all against Bangladesh. Did you see your game at that stage as more of a longer format type of bowler?
Funny enough, I always saw myself as a better bowler in the shorter format of the game, because of the fact that I mentioned earlier, I didn't really miss very often, so I was pretty accurate, and I could pretty much land the ball whenever I wanted when I was bowling well. So I actually thought I was better in in the limited format of the game, and I sort of thought I proved that in first-class cricket, or especially for Warwickshire. I played a lot of white ball cricket for Warwickshire and did really well. So look, I had a good game plan in Test cricket. I mean, I was fortunate to have some of the best fast bowlers in the world in my side, and generally, I felt 3 of the best batsmen in the world in my top 5 batting. So, that particular South African cricket team we had was right up there with one of the better ones that I've ever seen. So, I was fortunate to have those guys, and also I had the backing of Graham Smith, the captain. We had a, I was to hold and to go nowhere, and and they were able to sort of attack with the faster bowlers. You had your sort of Dale Staines, your Morne Morkels, Mackay and Cheney, Andre Null when he played. You had this barrage of fast bowlers coming in, and guys didn't enjoy facing them. And if I was going for nothing on my side, we were generally winning test matches. So, it was a really good team. And that 2008 year, and that was just a ridiculous year for South African cricket. I mean, I look back at that, beating England in England, and then beating Australia in Australia in the same year. That doesn't get too much better than that.
Yeah, that period, obviously, say 2008 to 2010, you got like a series of, I believe 9 series undefeated. For you personally, 2009, the home series against Australia, you got 9 in the game. How was that as a team under coach Mickey Arthur? You mentioned Captain Graham Smith. What kind of culture do you think led to that great side?
I think first of all, a winning one, and everyone knew kind of what their roles were and what they had to achieve. And also, I think Graham and Mickey got it spot on. I think what they did was you don't have to be best friends with everyone on your side. But while you're there, you've got to understand their culture. You've got to understand their differences, and you've got to make a way of getting it to work. South Africa is a very different place. Our past is our past. We've had an horrific past, and we have so many different cultures in a dressing room, and so many different types of people in a dressing room, and they managed to bring everyone together, which was great. And I think that's the reason why we did so well. I mean, we played exceptionally good cricket away from home, which was weird. I didn't lose in my whole time playing for South Africa. I didn't lose a single series away from home. Only lost one series, and that was at home, the one that you alluded to now. Thanks for reminding me about that. But it was the only series we lost, and look, that was a bit of a sort of, I suppose, it was a test match I remember fondly because I got sort of 9 wickets. But also, we'd lost the series before that test match already against Australia. We played pretty poor cricket the 2 test matches before and got beaten. And rightly so. After we came back, I think we had a bit of a hangover from that 2008-9 sort of year, and came back and got well beaten in those first 2 tests. And in the 3rd test, started playing some decent cricket again. And again, it was, I love bowling at Newlands, especially the old school Newlands with the southeaster blowing. You bowl into it, you get a lot of drift. The wicket's a bit slower than other wickets here in South Africa, so you're always in the game as a spinner. In that particular game, we played some really good cricket. Our batters stepped up to the plate, and there was a little bit in it for me. So it was good to sort of finish that series off well. But as in terms of the overall series, it wasn't a great one for us. But that setup, that team environment was probably the best I've ever played under or played in.
And then 2011, you played your last test match. Mickey Arthur had obviously gone. Gary Kirsten comes in. Did you feel the change of coach? And obviously there was a lot of talk with Imran Tahir now being qualified or getting qualification. How did that affect you mentally? Did it affect you mentally?
Sure, I think it would. Anybody, I think you'd be lying if you said it didn't. First of all, Imran Tahir deserved the call-up. I mean, that first class record is actually astounding. I mean, the amount of wickets that guy's got is ridiculous. And the fact that he didn't do as well at Test cricket than I thought he would is irrelevant. The guy deserved his chance. Also a fantastic bloke, and he's done sort of wonders in one day cricket for South Africa. But I mean, I'm surprised he didn't do better in Test cricket, I must admit, because he's a proper bowler, that guy, and he deserved his chance. I suppose I was a bit disappointed as I went from sort of number 1 to number 4. There were like 3 other spinners that jumped to sort of ahead of me when I felt I'd done nothing wrong. Probably not set the world alight, but it wasn't my job to set the world alight. So, I was a bit disappointed with the way it was handled. Sure, it had nothing to do with Gary Kirsten, that I can assure you. It was more sort of a selection, sort of combination of selectors that wanted to move on, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. But sure, I was a bit sort of hurt and upset about it. And I suppose it showed, because I only played another 2 years of cricket and then stopped.
Yes, in terms of your Test career, finished with 103 wickets. I think that's currently 16th on the all-time list of South Africa. So it's a phenomenal Test career. So post-playing days, what have you been up to?
We started, it's funny. We started a sort of banking software business. So we're a banking switching platform. So we do help retailers become banks. We do large government distribution of funds, cross-border transfers. all that sort of stuff into Africa. And yeah, so I've become a banker for my sins since I finished playing, and looking to study again next year. So it's been, I've got 2 kids now, they're getting a bit bigger, so it's been really busy.
So when you were playing, did you have a plan to move into this sector? And a word on sportsmen kind of making that transition. Obviously, playing days is only a short part of one's life, and a lot of sportsmen struggle. A word on that?
Sure. Yeah, look, I actually read an article about it, sort of about the how to bridge that gap a bit more effectively. And I mean, it is unbelievably scary. You know, at the time, I came home from a game and I was on the physio bed, and it was the long-serving physio of the Titans, Ian Repton. I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I mean, I think I was only 33 years old when I stopped playing. So I still had a long time to go. But then again, you know, if you're 40 years old looking for a job, it's a lot more difficult than when you're 33. And I was quite fortunate to meet a guy called Kobus Deploy, who started this business was sort of together, called Solbucks. And we, you know, I learned as we went along. I don't have a degree. I'm starting, as I said, next year, studying again. So hopefully doing my MBA next year. You know, I just learned along the way. And, you know, I had the ability, which I was fortunate that I could sell, and sort of moved up the chain, and now sort of helping run the business. And it's just been, I was fortunate to get into it, but there's no shortcut, unfortunately. You've got to kind of, you know, and also financially, you know, I didn't have IPL, I didn't have all those sort of things. So you go from earning really good money to earning nothing, and it can be you know, there was sort of levels of depression as you go along. But I was fortunate to have a sort of good wife who had a very good job. And she could sort of get us through it. But it certainly isn't an easy time for a sportsman. I had a conversation with AB de Villiers about it a while ago, and you know, even a guy like AB, you know, who's made a lot of money, so money's not the problem. It's what's next in your life. You know, what are you going to do with yourself? What are you going to keep you? You know, what's going to keep you busy? And as a guy that's achieved at such a high level, you kind of want to achieve at that level again, and the next thing you do, and it becomes quite difficult to live up to that expectation.
And then back on the playing field, a word on the current South African side. How do you say that the spinners? Are there any future spinners that you would say that we should keep an eye on?
Look, I think this Keshav Maharaj is a fantastic bowler. I really do. I think that you know, a few technical things. I was fortunate enough to work with him a bit now in this last Test series against the English, and his work ethic is through the roof. And there were a few technical issues he had, but we worked on those. I just think he's a really, really good bowler. I think he's all the attributes to be sort of a 300 Test wicket spinner. He's already got 100 Test wickets already in his career. I think he could play close to 100 Test matches for South Africa. So I think he's the guy in possession now. You know, I think Shamsi's a fantastic foil for when Imran Tahir decides that he's done. You know, he's got much more consistent. He used to bowl too many bad balls. He's now not bowling many bad ones, and you know, he's got himself fitter. He's hungry. So sort of, you know, as a backup there, you've got him. You've got a guy called Fortuyn, who's a good sort of controlling sort of bowler. You know, there's a core group of guys there that you can work with. But I do think that Keshav Maharaj is the real deal.
And then the challenges South African cricket faces currently, in your opinion?
There's a few. Look, I think financially they're fortunate now. I think that Jacques Fall, who's the acting CEO, he's incredible commercially. You know, he's probably, if not the best, one of the best sporting CEOs in the country. You know, he took the Titans, you know, from sort of breaking even to really making good profits. He's done the same with Cricket South Africa now. They're making profits. They've got Graham Smith in there, who you know, I think they need to get someone in there that had credibility, someone that sort of commanded the respect of the cricketing world. Which he does, and you know, and then you've got the Bulldog Mark Archer as the coach, who I think they were lacking a bit of sort of that old South African, you know, aggressiveness in their sort of way they're doing things, which Bachi will bring back. You know, his work ethic is second to none. He doesn't take any shit whatsoever, and he's, you know, he's become quite a fair guy. He's become quite experienced coaching the Titans, winning trophies. He knows how to win. So I think that they've got the right blocks in place to get a good side, and then sort of nurturing talent in this country. I mean, that's the biggest issue: is finding the right coaches in the right positions, finding the talent. You know, people can't tell me that there aren't another 15, 20, 30, 40 Rabadas floating around in South Africa somewhere. There has to be. It just needs the sort of focus to be in the right direction to get these guys to come through. We have our challenges in this country. We certainly do. We've got the haves and the have-nots more than most places. The difference between the haves and the have-nots is sort of just ginormous. So we do have our issues in this country, but I think with the right focus and the right guys in place, we can certainly bridge those gaps.
Perfect, Paul. Really appreciate your time. Fantastic to chat about your career, and all the best for the months ahead.
Thank you. Anytime, man. It was enjoyable. I enjoyed that.
Perfect. So Neel Khagram, Cricket Love Stories, Paul Harris. Thank you.